Zaha stumbles out of the shower, drops of fresh blood dripping on the floor, and finds a trail of carnage that leads him straight to a fallen ally. How did he get into this mess so fast? To understand how everything got to this point, let's go back to the beginning. The 10,000-mile cliff is the stage for an end that seems inevitable. Chunha Jin looks into the abyss and feels that the air there smells of ancient times. He recalls the days when his greatest desire was to become the god of martial arts. An almost impossible goal, but he never gave up trying to achieve it. Whenever he spoke of his plans, they called him crazy, but he trained day and night without stopping. He acted like an obsessed man, focusing only on strengthening his body and spirit. The training was hard, but now he realizes none of it was enough. A voice cuts through the wind, calling him by the nickname Mad Demon. The left hand of the demonic cult commands, "Stop wasting time and hand over the pearl you stole." Ha-Jin doesn't even turn around and retorts, "Can't you see I'm talking to myself right now?" He holds the small red orb and asks if that's really the pearl. The hero threatens to throw the treasure into the precipice if they don't shut up. He boasts of being a master of tricks and immune to the traps of beautiful women, and warns that he's great at drinking and a master of lightness techniques. The villain merely scoffs, saying he's greatly mistaken about his own fame. He spits venom. "Women couldn't even pretend to like a guy like you." The silence that follows is heavy with blood-chilling hatred. Ha-Jin ignores the personal offense and tells the enemy to continue with his speech. To reach the top, he became a master of every art imaginable. The world knew him and feared him as the legendary Mad Demon. The cult soldiers watch in silence, waiting only for the signal to kill. He asks if the chatter is over, but the answer is still negative. Everything seems to lose its meaning, even the justice he sought his entire life. The villain laughs and reminds him that he is the most wanted criminal in all of Murim. It was the righteous sex who first gave him the name Madman. Ha-Jin's face closes into a mask of absolute coldness. He looks at the pearl and asks if he should throw it away at once. The left hand steps back, trying to calm the protagonist's nerves. Ha-Jin remembers killing hundreds of elite soldiers while being hunted. The enemy glares at him with fury in his eyes and repeats the title Mad Demon. He warns that having a mouth doesn't give him the right to say whatever he wants. The killing tent explodes in the air, making the ground seem to tremble with fear. The protagonist accepts his fate and decides that everything will end in one last fight. He prepares himself as the enemy watches his every move with caution. The left hand tries to change his mind and suggests resolving things through conversation. Ha-Jin explodes. "Talk? You hunted me for days without letting me eat or sleep." He complains he didn't even have time to go to the bathroom because of them. The villain is confused and asks what the madman intends to do now. Ha-Jin warns that he will give them the gift they so desired. In a sudden movement, he brings the sacred pearl straight to his mouth and swallows the demonic cult's most valuable treasure without a second's hesitation. The left hand's face contorts in a shock of pure despair. Ha-Jin wipes the corner of his mouth and comments that the taste is strange. He says with the utmost calm that the pearl tastes like peach. By the terrified look on the soldiers' faces, he knows he made the right decision. The enemy leader loses his mind and his eyes almost pop out of his face. He orders, "Kill him! No, keep him alive! I'll grind that bastard myself!" The army advances like a wave of death, shouting battle orders. Ha-Jin moves like a red blur, cutting through the front line. He dodges deadly blades with the ease of one dancing in the wind. The counterattack is too swift for human eyes to follow. Blood begins to splatter, painting the cliff top a vivid crimson. He seizes one of the soldiers, using him as a shield against the others. Every move of the Mad Demon results in shattered bones and screams of agony. Surrounded by dozens, it seems. He is the one doing the hunting. With a powerful spin, he sends an entire horde of simultaneous attackers flying. The soldiers try to reorganize, but his speed is simply insane. Chunha Jin slices through the cult's defenses as if they were made of paper. Another enemy falls lifeless as chaos engulfs everything. He takes a brief pause, his robe swaying as he catches his breath. The men in black retreat, realizing they're up against a force of nature. Ha-jin stares down the leader, asking if he'll continue to hide behind his subordinates. He taunts the left hand, calling him a coward in front of everyone. He asks if he'll let all his men die before he fights. The villain loses his patience and shouts that he'll handle it himself. He orders everyone to step back so the final duel can begin. Ha-jin scoffs at his opponent's stance, saying he talks too much for a coward. The left hand screams at him to shut up and charges with a furious attack. The protagonist concentrates, gathering what little remains of his internal energy. He challenges the enemy to unleash all the power he's held back until now. The clash between their two energies makes the air crackle and the ground splinter. The villain unleashes a heavy technique, trying to crush the hero with brute force. Ha-jin feels his internal wounds scream, and blood rise to his throat. He decides to end it all, activating his most destructive technique at once. Light explodes around them, violently consuming everything it touches. It's an all-or-nothing blow, demanding every last drop of his life. The soldiers watch from afar, terrified by the level of power unleashed. The explosion blinds everyone, and the cliff begins to crumble beneath them. Gigantic rocks plunge into the void along with the remnants of the battle. The end seems to have arrived for the man everyone called mad. Mid-fall, he wonders if his opponent was simply too strong. The left hand barely survives, but he's wounded and in shock. He admits to himself that the mad demon surpassed all expectations. Chun Ha-jin gazes at the sky one last time as his consciousness fades. The villain lets out a cry of hatred as he watches the hero vanish into the abyss. With a bloody smile, Ha-jin thinks that dying like this isn't so bad. He hopes the cult leader will wipe them all out for their failure. With one final insult in mind, he plunges into the total darkness of the valley. The enemy watches from above, knowing he failed his main mission. But the silence is broken when Ha-jin opens his eyes somewhere else. He is floating in a white void that seems to have no end. His first thought is the lament of dying without ever having dated a hot girl. He looks around and realizes the scenery is bizarre and surreal. A low sound makes him realize he's not alone in this place. A white-bearded elder appears and declares him a complete madman. Ha-jin notices the old man radiates a power that makes his bones tremble. The elder explains that the pearl he swallowed contained the souls of masters. The protagonist listens in silence, trying to process the gravity of his mistake. The souls will now torment his sleep and steal the essence of his food. They will spread to anyone he decides to touch in the future. The old man warns that his chi will become an uncontrollable storm. He is perplexed to see Ha-jin find this power overload. Great! The elder realizes that the young man's will is beyond normal comprehension. He demands that Ha-jin reveal the truth about his real motivations. The hero states he merely wanted to prevent the cult leader from consuming it. The old man asks why he cares so much about the leader's actions. Ha-jin explains that the man treats others as if they were trash. The elder understands that he acted to prevent a monster from growing stronger. He smiles, concluding that this is a valid way to do good. The old man warns that he will offer him one last lifeline. Ha-jin doesn't understand what he means, but accepts the gift. The white light swallows him again, abruptly extinguishing his senses. The scenery shifts, and the familiar scent of old wood hits his nose. Chun Ha-jin awakens startled, upon a simple inn bed. He gazes at his hands and the room, comprehending nothing. The place is small and humble, yet he knows every detail of it. It's the inn where he used to work when he was just a boy. He looks at himself and realizes he has returned to being the young Yi Zaha. The sun shines brightly outside, signaling that the day is just beginning. He understands that this is no dream, that he has truly returned in time. Ha-jin tries to comprehend how this second chance became possible for him now. He realizes he must be around 20 years old at this stage of his life. A smile dawns as he grasps the absurd advantage now in his hands. He can begin his martial training much earlier than in his first life. The hero clenches his fists and feels an energy vibrating beneath his skin. He knows that this time he will become far more powerful than before. Determination blazes in his eyes as he plans his new path, but he feels a sharp pain and wonders who beat him like this. He gets up and sees that the room is completely overturned and broken. Memories of what happened that day begin to flood his mind. He finally situates himself, realizing he's returned to a critical moment. Two customers were mocking him for trying to save every single coin. Ha-jin recalls trying to disguise his true plans with a silly joke. He had said he merely wanted to hear music at the city's famous brothel, but rumors spread, claiming he desired something more with Chae-hyung. They laughed in his face, calling the poor worker a loser and an idiot. What began as a jest turned into a vile rumor that destroyed his reputation. Seeing the state of the inn, he realizes the rumor caused serious trouble. Fury begins to boil in his chest as he recalls such gratuitous humiliation. They beat him and shattered his home, all because of a mere gossip. He decides to check his body before heading out to collect every outstanding debt. Ha-jin immediately begins practicing his secret energy circulation technique. He closes his eyes and seeks the center of power within himself. His shock is immense when he realizes he already possesses chi within his body. And it's not just a little, there's a massive amount of energy there. He doesn't understand how, but he knows this is a gift from destiny. Without wasting time, he begins to refine this power with his master technique. Chun Ha-jin can barely believe the strength he is feeling at this very moment. He realizes the Elder granted him the true power of the Celestial Pearl. The vibrant energy in his veins is the result of the souls he swallowed. Half of this power is still locked, but the other half is colossal. He laments not having all of it available, but he knows this is already enough. He takes a deep breath, feeling the chi settle firmly in his dantian. There's no need to rush, as he is the strongest in the region. It had been decades since he felt such peace during deep meditation. He stands up, feeling every muscle ready for immediate action. Ha-jin walks through the inn and sees a man in blue robes watching. He feels his memory returning with every corner he looks at in that place. A guy with a bandana stops eating and stares at him with total disbelief. The man chokes and asks if the boy is still breathing after that. He comments that Ha-jin got beaten badly and calls him a pathetic loser. Ha-jin ignores the comment, remembering how everyone treated him like trash. Rage boils because he was just a messenger, trampled by everyone. He arrives at the Plum Blossom Brothel, the place where all the chaos began. He looks at the facade and remembers the humiliation he suffered there before. Two guards in red block him and ask if he's gone mad. They shout that a mere servant has no right to see Chae-hyung. Ha-jin takes a kick and tries to defend himself, but the aggressions continue. Suddenly, Chae-hyung herself appears and stares at him with a cold gaze. The hero wonders why she looks at him like that when he never did anything. Zaha enters the inn and smells the familiar scent of old wood and sweat. He hears the malicious comments about the beating he took earlier, but he's unfazed. The hero lets out a dry laugh, remembering that even the legendary Mad Demon had his trash days. He realizes he has returned to the perfect moment to change the course of his destiny. Now, his sole mission is to clear all this mess and show who truly runs things. An arrogant fellow stares at him and asks what this mere messenger is looking at with such swagger. The man scoffs, asking if Zaha is going to set the brothel on fire or if he's just going to cry. Zaha watches the idiot laughing loudly and simply adds his face to his collection list. The brute approaches, shocked that Zaha can still stand after nearly dying. He orders the boy to go back to his room if he doesn't want another beating right now. Zaha merely makes a dismissive sound, which pushes the aggressor's nerves to the limit. The man tries to remember his name, but Zaha has already decided that words are over there. "You bastard!" shouts the guy, throwing a punch laden with pure hatred in his direction. The fist travels through the air, but Zaha doesn't even blink, maintaining a calm that frightens those present. With an almost invisible movement, Zaha intercepts the attack and forcefully locks his opponent's arm. The counterattack is a sharp blow that sends the man flying backward like a rag doll. As the man collapses, Zaha wonders why he got so irritated by a simple question. He walks to the entrance of the brothel, where a guard in red immediately blocks his passage. Zaha questions if this is how they treat a client who came to spend money at their establishment. This cursed messenger! The guard explodes and lunges at him with full fury. The attack is heavy, but for Zaha, Everything seems to be happening in slow motion now. He slides across the floor and lands a precise blow that knocks all the air from the guard's lungs. A groan of pain escapes as the man in red falls to his knees, defeated in seconds. He gasps on the floor, not understanding how an in-employee suddenly became so strong. Zaha dusts off his clothes and adjusts his gaze, ready to enter the heart of the problem. He comments aloud that this place truly understands nothing of hospitality or respect. Zaha throws open the brothel doors, and the noise of the crowded hall instantly dies down. The hero walks across the red carpet, attracting looks of shock and confusion from all the patrons. He spreads his arms and shouts for the staff to stop messing around and come serve their new master. His presence dominates the hall in a way no one there has ever seen from a common young man. The employees hesitate, torn between fear and the urge to expel the audacious intruder. Zaha maintains a knowing smile, fully aware of the chaos he's about to unleash upon this place. He repeats his call, his voice echoing through the decorated walls of the luxurious brothel. Two guards whisper to each other, recognizing the boy who got a brutal beating just a few days ago. They think Zaha has completely lost his mind or that his brain melted from all the beating. A man in red approaches and asks if he knows where he thinks he's entering now. Zaha replies that the place is obvious, somewhere to drink and have fun without being bothered. The guard freezes, speechless before the audacity of someone who should be cowering in fear. He asserts that Zaha has truly lost his mind and signals for the others to surround the young man. But Zaha merely ignores the encirclement, focused on someone far more important who is observing everything. Manager Cha Sung-tae appears at the top of the stairs, analyzing the situation with a cold gaze. He gives a cynical smile and says they cannot expel someone who has come to bring profit to the house. A customer is a customer. Sung-tae affirms, descending the steps with a false and dangerous elegance. Zaha asks the guards if they heard their boss's orders clearly or if they need a drawing. Sung-tae orders them to prepare the best table for the inn's messenger, feigning cheap courtesy. He mocks, saying Zaha should enjoy it, for he will never again have the chance to enter there. A henchman in a red bandana snorts in anger, but is forced to guide Zaha down the corridor. Zaha follows the man, feeling the bloodlust of all the guards who remained behind. The fellow asks what kind of drink the boy wants, trying to maintain a superior tone. Zaha stares at him with an intensity that makes the henchman involuntarily take a step back. He asks if the man doesn't like being looked down upon by a mere inn messenger. Rage boils on the bandana-wearing man's face, who clenches his fists until his knuckles turn white. He murmurs softly, asking himself if this boy wants to die already. The henchman says he's only not killing him now because Sung-tae gave clear orders to serve the drink. Zaha enters the private room and sits on the couch, acting as if he owns the entire building. He picks up the bottle they brought and asks what kind of trash they're serving. A woman in purple claims it's top-shelf liquor, but Zaha knows it's just a lie. He gets straight to the point and asks if the famous Chaehyung is ready to receive him. The woman warns that the owner will be furious and reminds him he's been beaten because of her before. "I'll deliver the message," she says, leaving the room with haste and fear in her eyes. She walks through the corridors, feeling that something very wrong is happening on this cold night. Zaha is left alone for a moment, observing the room's luxury with absolute disdain. He comments on how they like to deceive those they deem inferior in this world. Zaha analyzes the liquid smell and confirms it's nothing more than third-rate booze. He calls them all swindlers, laughing at their pathetic attempt to feign class for a master like him. Suddenly, Dongguak bursts into the room, screaming, calling Zaha a mother-fiff. War and a lunatic. Zaha calmly asks if it's forbidden for a messenger to drink and why Dongguak is so ill-mannered. The brute turns red with hatred, unable to believe the boy is talking back. Zaha smiles and asks if Dongguak ate something spoiled to be barking so loudly. Dongguak approaches the table, saying the blows to the head must have fried Zaha's brain. He threatens to hit even harder this time to see if the boy finally learns his lesson. Zaha remains seated, looking at his glass as if Dongguak were just an annoying mosquito. He calls the brute's name again, but this time with a voice that chills the blood. Zaha's hand moves to the table with a speed the human eye cannot follow. Dongguak tries to react, but realizes too late that he fell into the messenger's trap. Zaha seizes his wrist, and the pressure is so strong that Dongguak's bones begin to crack. The brute tries to break free, but it's as if he's caught in a solid steel vice. Zaha's gaze has changed. No longer the sparkle of a youth, only the darkness of a demon. Dongguak lets out a roar of pain as he is forced to lean over the dining table. Zaha asks why everyone is acting like dogs in heat when he just wanted to drink in peace. It's at that instant that the door opens and Chae-young enters, stopping dead at the sight of the brutal scene. She looks at Zaha, and her name hangs in the air like a warning that the party is over. Brother Dongguak, stay outside right now. She orders with unquestionable authority. Zaha releases the man's arm and tells him to get out, laughing at Dongguak's pained groan. The courtesan watches the messenger with suspicion, sensing that the danger there is real and deadly. Zaha stares back at her, maintaining that enigmatic smile that's driving everyone insane. Chae-young asks what's so funny about being surrounded by enemies ready to kill. He says he doesn't need to control his emotions in a place where everyone is a hypocrite and a liar. Zaha warns that Sung-tae will charge dearly for every second he spends drinking in there. Pay what you owe and get out of here before the worst happens to you, the woman warns. Zaha comments that it's the first time he's been able to see her beauty like this, so close up. Chae-young makes it clear that even with bags of gold, she would never sleep with someone like him. She proudly states that she sells her art and her talent, but she's not just any brothel girl. Zaha slams his hand on the table and warns that he's going to make something very clear to her too. He states that he never said he wanted to sleep with her, but rather that he only wanted to hear one song. Zaha says he respects the fact that she sells art instead of her body, much to the courtesan's shock. She's confused, remembering that the rumor at the inn was that he was obsessed with her. Zaha explains that it was just a joke and that he wouldn't even have money for such luxury. He reveals that the only reason he came was to tell her these truths to her face. Then get out of here immediately, Chae-young shouts, losing her patience with the young man. Zaha remains seated, ignoring the woman's command as if she were just part of the decor. Her gaze trembles, realizing that words no longer have an effect on this new Zaha. Suddenly, 3 elite guards from the Black Cat Union storm the room with their hands on their swords. The leader says, it seems Zaha only came here to fulfill his wish to die. He suggests they settle this outside so as not to stain the expensive rug with the boy's blood. Zaha only asks to finish his glass of drink before heading out for the final brawl. The guards are dumbfounded by his audacity, unable to believe he still has the nerve to drink. Zaha looks at them and asks if it's not the minimum courtesy to let a man finish his drink. The 3 men exchange glances, deciding whether to kill him now or wait for their boss's signal. The leader starts to laugh loudly and tells Chae-young to leave the room because things are about to get ugly. Enjoy your last sip, Master Zaha, he says with a deadly sarcastic tone. He comments that Zaha is quite a man for coming here to demand what he wanted. The guard confesses that if he had known he was so brave, he would have hit him even harder before. He promises that this time the beating will be definitive and that Zaha will have no reason to complain. The leader tilts his face and asks if the messenger agrees that he deserves this tragic fate. Zaha simply extends the bottle and asks if any of them want a sip to gather courage. The guards refuse, telling him to get up now and accept the end that awaits him in the courtyard. Zaha slowly finishes his drink, feeling the chi flow through his veins like a river of fire. He lets out a sigh of disappointment that they sell such trash as if it were quality alcohol. The leader wonders how he can be so relaxed while death breathes down his neck. Zaha says the drink is gone and now he just has one more quick question to ask. The silence that follows is heavy, laden with the promise of unprecedented violence. The guards position themselves, thinking Zaha is still the same joke from a few days ago. The leader says Zaha escalated things on his own, and now there's no turning back for him. Suddenly, Zaha begins to laugh softly, a laugh that comes from the depths of a broken soul. The henchmen are furious, thinking the boy is mocking them until the very end. Zaha's laughter increases in volume, echoing throughout the brothel like a harbinger of death. He laughs like the mad demon he once was, giving everyone in the room goosebumps. In a flash, Zaha kicks the table, and the heavy furniture flies towards the guards like a projectile. He vanishes from their sight, moving faster than any master they've ever seen. The impact of the table smashing the men against the wall makes the floor violently tremble. Plates and glasses fly everywhere as chaos takes over the small private salon. One of the guards falls to the ground, letting out a groan of agony, his chest bones shattered. The other two try to get up, but they are covered in wounds and completely disoriented. "Do I still look like a joke to you?" Zaha asks, emerging from the shadows with a murderous gaze. He stares at the fallen leader, who now trembles in fear before the messenger's absurd strength. Chae-young watches everything from a corner, her hands trembling and her heart pounding in her throat. Zaha stomps his foot with force, and the wood cracks, showing that his power is not human. He shouts, asking if they still find it funny to beat someone who can't defend themselves. The hero takes down the other two with precise kicks, leaving a trail of utter destruction. Chae-young wonders what on earth is happening to the world for this boy to be such a monster. Zaha approaches her with calm steps, but each stride echoes like thunder in the room. He calls her an old hag and orders her to bring more of that terrible, third-rate liquor now. The courtesan is outraged at being called an old hag, but fear prevents her from reacting with fury. Zaha says he avoids hitting women who can't fight, but that she should watch her words. He warns her to think very carefully before opening her mouth to speak to him again. Chae-young recoils and leaves the room, while Zaha calmly walks over the fallen bodies. The sound of his footsteps is the only thing heard in the silent, terrified corridor. The guards on the floor continue to moan, unable to believe they were defeated by a mere servant. Zaha asks why the leader isn't laughing anymore, now that the joke has become truly funny. A horde of new guards emerges in the corridor, growling like beasts ready to attack. A white-haired master crosses the doorway, emanating an aura of power that makes the air heavy. He observes the trail of blood and destruction, fixing his cold eyes on the young Zaha. Zaha merely smirks and asks if the master has finally decided to join the fun. He points to the defeated men, showing that the white-haired man himself could be next. The white-haired master says nothing, but his thirst for blood fills the entire room. The injured henchmen try to crawl away, fearing the confrontation about to begin. "Zaha, have you completely lost your mind?" the master asks with a calm, deadly voice. He warns that the boy will end up dying if he keeps playing with fire in such a reckless manner. Zaha laughs at the threat and asks if he truly believes he has enough power to kill him. "Yes, I'll end this now," the master states, preparing for the final strike. Tension reaches its peak as the two masters prepare for the inevitable clash. They stare at each other for a second that seems to last an eternity, measuring each other's strength. Zaha lunges forward with a speed that breaks the sound barrier inside the luxurious room. The white-haired master reacts in the exact moment, showing he is no ordinary opponent. His eyes gleam with cold determination as he tries to find an opening in the boy. He delivers a powerful blow, but Zaha dodges with an elegance that borders on the impossible. The impact of the combat makes the walls crack and the brothel's windows shatter into 1,000 pieces. Other guards try to approach, but are repelled by the absurd pressure of Zaha's chi. The final confrontation has begun, and what was merely a visit to the brothel has turned into a battlefield. The impact of the blow still echoes, and the henchmen despair upon seeing their leader's state. Zaha remains motionless, with a gaze that pierces the soul of anyone who dares to face him. The silence in the room is absolute, broken only by the heavy breathing of the men left standing. The red-clad guards tremble, feeling that death is sitting at the table with them. Cha Sung-tae furiously wipes the blood from his face and growls the boy's name, "Yi Zaha, do you really want to die?" He tries to maintain his boss-like demeanor, but Zaha interrupts him with a blood-chilling coldness. The boy warns without hesitation that if that sword fully leaves its sheath, the master's life will end right then and there. Sungtae freezes in place and realizes that this is no empty bluff, as Zaha's power has grown impossibly in just a few days. Zaha smirks and asks if the smartest man in the prefecture still hasn't understood what's happening. He points to the bodies on the floor, covered in food scraps and defeat, proving that luck had nothing to do with it. With a penetrating gaze, he asks if the master thinks the cut on his eye was also by chance. Sungtae doesn't reply, but the cold sweat trickling down his neck speaks volumes about what he's feeling. Zaha continues his sermon of death, demanding the man think very carefully before taking his next step. Finish drawing your sword and die here now. The phrase drops like a final sentence. The white-haired master hesitates, his fingers trembling slightly over the hilt of his weapon. He admits to himself that the threat is real, as he couldn't even keep up with the boy's movements. The tension in the room is so thick, it feels like the air will explode at any moment. Defeated by fear, Sungtae orders all his subordinates to descend and wait downstairs immediately. Alone with the monster, he asks what Zaha is truly planning with all this destruction. He clenches his fist tightly, realizing the boy didn't just come to have a drink and leave. Sungtae questions if all this is merely to get an apology for what happened days ago. Zaha finds the idea interesting and says that if an apology is needed, the brothel owner should come personally. The white-haired master hears that and feels he's dealing with someone far above his level. Zaha stares closely at him and asks, sarcastically, if the man has completely lost his sight. He reminds him that he almost died when he was beaten by them before, and now the bill has finally come due. Sungtae remains silent, processing the absurd shift in power before his eyes. He swallows his pride and orders a table to be prepared in the next room so they can talk calmly. Zaha walks among the wreckage and comments that it's uncomfortable to see people from the same city killing each other like this. He maintains a neutral expression, which frightens the white-haired master even more. Sungtae wonders how someone can do all that and still maintain such a calm demeanor. While the bodies are carried out, the two move to a more private and luxurious setting. The table is set, but the atmosphere remains heavy with Zaha's murderous chi. Sungtae sighs deeply, lamenting the mess that appeared out of nowhere and ruined his night. He serves the drink and asks if Zaha found some treasure or secret training to become so strong. The master assures him that the liquor is of the finest quality and its taste should be excellent. Zaha examines the glass and realizes that this liquor is quite different from what they served him earlier. He merely repeats the name of the drink, leaving Sungtae visibly uncomfortable with the scrutiny. The master tries to justify himself, saying they must have brought a bad bottle by accident earlier, as businesses need profit. Zaha asks if the drink is poisoned and says he'll take a sip first to test it. He watches Sungtae drink, gauging every reaction of the man to see if there's any hidden trap. The master lets out a sigh after his sip, trying to appear as friendly as possible in the face of danger. He confesses that he had never heard of Zaha's fighting skills until that bloody night. Zaha calmly sips his drink, seemingly ignoring his opponent's forced compliments. He claims he only held back before because his father always told him not to get into fights. Sungtae thinks to himself that it's a blatant lie, but he doesn't dare say it out loud. The master decides to apologize formally, saying he understands Zaha's outrage at being humiliated by the guards. Zaha ironically thanks him, but immediately afterward calls the man a son of a bitch with utter contempt. He warns that he's starting to get annoyed by the way that apology was delivered. Sungtae's face hardens, but the fear of sudden death prevents him from reacting. Zaha asks if he'll need to break some of the master's bones for him to learn how to speak with respect. The movement of Zaha's hand makes the air vibrate, putting Sungtae in a state of total panic. Sweat drips down the master's face as he realizes his prestige is worth nothing at that moment. "I sincerely apologize," he exclaims, desperate to keep his head on his shoulders. He kneels for the first time in his life, sincerely begging the young delivery boy for forgiveness. At that exact moment, Chae-young appears at the room's door, wearing her vibrant red attire. Sungtae senses her presence and becomes even more embarrassed to be seen in such a humiliating position. The courtesan is shocked to see the feared boss Sungtae bowed and wounded before a mere inn employee. She wonders if the master also lost the fight as disgracefully as the others. Zaha notices her presence and casually comments on the woman's arrival. Sungtae orders Chae-young to compose herself and try to understand the gravity of the situation. He yells at her to leave and wait somewhere else, trying to salvage what little dignity he has left. The woman hurries out, but the atmosphere in the room remains heavy and strange. Zaha calls her name in a calm voice, making her stop for an instant before leaving. She answers in a whisper, fearing the crazy boy might decide to attack her too. He asks if she knows something very important about life and feelings. Even a delivery boy has pure love, Zaha says, with a look that mixes sarcasm and melancholy. Chae-young is speechless, looking at him with a mix of fear and deep curiosity. But Zaha's tone changes instantly, becoming dry and uninterested. He states he has no interest in her and orders her to leave the room once and for all. Zaha warns that her presence is ruining the mood of the serious conversation he is having. The courtesan freezes for a second, processing the direct rejection from the man who now dominates the place. Sungtae reinforces the order, yelling at her to leave immediately before things get worse. She finally leaves, leaving the two men alone again in that tense environment. The brothel corridor seems colder now that Zaha's power has spread through every corner. Sungtae turns his attention back to Zaha, trying to figure out what the next step in this madness will be. He clicks his tongue, irritated at having been exposed in that manner in front of a subordinate. Zaha calls the master's name, and the man responds with a tired grunt. The boy tells Sungtae to stop being rude, saying his squinted eyes make him very uncomfortable. Sungtae lowers his head, accepting every insult to prevent Zaha from completely losing his temper. Zaha's gaze is like a sharp blade that permits no error or resistance. The white-haired master remains silent, waiting for the boy to finally say what he wants. Zaha observes the liquor in his glass, seemingly reflecting on the future of the entire prefecture. He asks when the true owner of that brothel will finally appear to face him. Sungtae explains that, due to the situation of the Black Cat Union, it will be difficult for the owner to come immediately. Zaha listens attentively, realizing that much greater forces are moving in the shadows of Muram. The master reveals that a new union will be established in Ilyang with the direct approval of the Black Cat. He suggests that everything that happened today could change the organization's plans forever. Zaha completes his sentence, asking if the Black Cat Union will personally intervene if he defeats the owner. Sungtae confirms that this would be exactly the case, and that the danger will only increase from now on. Zaha asks what the master expects him to do in the face of this imminent threat. He questions if Sungtae wants him to just have a drink and go home as if nothing happened. Do you think that would solve everything? Zaha asks, with a tone bordering on insanity. Sungtae admits no, and asks what the boy truly wishes to do with the power he wields. Zaha proposes that the owner and his brothers serve him as subordinates from now on. He states that this is the only way the Black Cat Union won't be able to meddle in his affairs. Sungtae doubts they will accept such humiliation, but Zaha insists that everyone must join him. He warns that he is giving them a unique chance, and that they better make a wise choice. If they don't agree, Zaha makes it clear that he will simply force them to join his group. Sungtae wonders what transformed that simple delivery boy into someone who speaks of creating sex with such ease. Zaha stands to leave, and the master asks why he doesn't wait a little longer for an answer. The long-haired boy asks if the master thinks he is running away from something. Sungtae admits yes, but Zaha merely lets out a sigh of boredom at such distrust. He tells the master to do as he pleases and begins walking towards the brothel exit. The remaining guards clear the way, looking at Zaha as if he were a god of death walking among them. He keeps his gaze fixed on the horizon, already planning the next step of his revolution in Ilyang. As he descends the stairs, he realizes that the chaos he caused is still far from over. Suddenly, screams echo through the main hall. Where is he? Where is that damn delivery boy? It's the bearded doorman from before, who woke up furious and swearing revenge against Zaha. Zaha appears with a mocking smile and asks if the doorman has finally awakened from his deep slumber. The man explodes in fury and lunges, yelling insults, trying to land a desperate punch on the boy. His fist cuts through the air, but Zaha is no longer where the blow was meant to land. With a fluid movement, Zaha counterattacks before the doorman can even understand what happened. The impact is brutal, and the man is sent flying across the hall as if he were a rag doll. Everyone around is in shock, seeing that Zaha has not an ounce of mercy for those who challenge him. He comments to the other guards that they should have explained the situation to their colleague. Zaha laments that the poor fellow had to get beaten up again because of his friend's incompetence. He clicks his tongue and says he expected nothing less from those inconsiderate bastards. Silence reigns once more as Zaha calmly walks towards the main door of the brothel. He mutters to himself that the delivery boy truly had a lot of fun on that eventful night. The guards watch his departure, praying he never decides to return to that place. Zaha steps out into the starry night, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a kneeling master. He walks through the deserted streets of Ilyang, feeling the night breeze cool his face after the combat. Each step echoes on the cobblestones, marking the beginning of a new era for that forgotten village. He stops before an imposing sign and murmurs that he has finally arrived at the right place. Zaha's gaze shines with renewed determination as he observes the establishment's facade. "I'm going to need a weapon if I want to fight against the Black Cat Union," he states with conviction. The sound of hammers striking hot metal fills the air inside the Dragon's Head metalworks. Vice Master Guak Yongge immediately recognizes him as the boy from Zaha Inn and is surprised. He asks if Zaha came there to pay his overdue debts to the metalworks. Zaha says he came to buy new items, but the man asks if he just wants a scythe or something simple. The boy reveals that he plans to fight the powerful Cho family and therefore seeks high-level weapons. Yonga mentions the rumors that Zaha was beaten and warns him not to let anger risk his life. Zaha tells him to shut up and just show him the weapons he has available for sale. The blacksmith asks if he's really going to use all the weapons he's asking to see now. Zaha orders them to bring the Black Dragon Sword, the White Dragon Whip, and the Cloud Dragon Dagger. Yonge comments that he liked Zaha's grandparents' soup, but complains that the boy's food is horrible. He asks why he would talk about unifying the Murim world with a mere delivery boy like him. Zaha is unfazed by the insult, focused only on the steel he is about to wield on his journey. The apprentices bring the heavy boxes containing the metal treasures Zaha requested. They tell him to look everything over calmly and test the weight of each rare piece. Zaha states that he will buy them all at once, as he is in a great hurry for what comes next. The blacksmith is astonished and says the total discounted price would be 90 yangs for the complete lot. Zaha repeats the amount, seeming to consider if that price is fair for the quality of what he's seeing. Yonga insists he's giving a huge discount because Zaha is an old resident of that city. Zaha proposes a different agreement, one that the blacksmith probably won't like at all. The man gets irritated and says that borrowing the weapons would be the same as committing daylight robbery. Suddenly, heavy footsteps approach, and a powerful voice asks what is happening inside. The silhouette of a giant man emerges from the shadows of the metalworks, emanating an overwhelming pressure. It is the master of the Dragon's Head metalworks, the legendary Kum Chuliong, a warrior covered in scars. He observes Zaha with an evaluating gaze, recognizing something different in that young-in delivery boy. Yongai explains to his boss that the boy wants to wage war against the Cho brothers and take the weapons for a low price. Chuliong asks if he is indeed the grandson of the Zaha Inn owners, and the boy greets him with respect. The giant master also complains about Zaha's soup, saying his grandparents was infinitely better. He seriously asks if the boy is truly planning to go to war against the Cho family. Chuliong promises that if they don't listen to him, he himself will protect Zaha because of the ties to his grandparents. Zaha is surprised by the offer and says there's no need to make things so big. He observes the giant and begins to wonder if the future is changing because of his actions. Zaha doesn't remember Chuliong being so helpful in his past life, which intrigues him. The master asks what Zaha truly intends to do against the tyrants who dominate the region. Zaha reveals that he wants to gather all the blacksmiths in the area and establish the powerful Steel Dragon sect. Chuliong is dumbfounded, demanding to know what in the world Zaha means by creating a new sect out of thin air. Tension rises as the boy elaborates on his revolutionary vision for Ilyong's future. He warns that if the Cho clan forms their union, they'll only steal even more money from all the local workers. Zaha declares that he will establish a federation of sects to ensure the Black Cat never sets foot there. The giant master repeats the federation's name, struggling to process the sheer scale of such insane ambition. Zaha details that the brothels will belong to the Rebirth sect, changing the very face of the local underworld. He points out that the metalworks will be the heart of the Steel Dragon sect under Chuliong's command. The boy states that he will gather all professions in the city to create specific sects for each of them. The apprentices listen in shock, realizing that Ilyong's power structure is about to crumble. Zaha concludes by stating that no one will be forced to pay fees, and no sect will be superior to another within this union. The plan is laid out, and the objective is crystal clear: to ensure that the hard-earned money of workers is never again stolen by tyrants. Master Chuliong listens intently and admits that, despite seeming crude, the idea was incredibly well thought out. He asks what the name would be for this place, forged for the marginalized and forgotten. Zaha gazes at the horizon, pondering the weight that title will carry for the future. With a sharp gaze, he decides on the name. Combining the terms for low and dirty, it will be called the How sect. Silence engulfs the metalworks as the giant master processes the scale of that ambition. How sect, he repeats, feeling that Ilyong's balance has just been utterly discarded. Chuliong asks if the boy truly believes he can face the Cho brothers alone. Zaha merely offers a smirk and replies, "You'll see." Impressed by his courage, the master orders that weapons be given to Zaha for free, without charging a single cent. He warns that they will only continue this conversation if the boy survives what's to come. Zaha accepts the challenge and withdraws, carrying the weight of steel and his new mission. Later, in a moment of calm, he meditates and prepares for the inevitable encounter. But the peace is short-lived as the sound of earth being dug echoes through the dark night. A man with a black beard emerges from the shadows and says, "So you came? I was only going to call you when they finished digging the hole." He violently plunges a small dagger into the table, attempting to impose a fear Zaha doesn't feel. The villain orders him to sit, acting as if he owned the boy's very destiny. His eyes gleam with a malice that has condemned many men before. Zaha stares the man down, without averting his gaze for even a single second. Behind them, henchmen continue digging the grave, preparing what was meant to be Zaha's final resting place. The man reveals that the Cho brothers have secured official approval from the Black Cat Union to dominate the region. Zaha listens in silence, allowing his enemy to feel superior for a few more moments. The villain complains that a mere message boy caused an unforgivable disturbance in the local brothel. He glares at Zaha and demands, "Give me 3 reasons why I should let you live before the hole is finished." To the man's surprise, Zaha begins to laugh, a chilling chuckle that freezes the blood of anyone who hears it. "And by any chance, should I be crying?" the boy asks with deadly sarcasm. The man explodes in rage, shouting that Zaha is an insolent bastard who doesn't know his place. He lunges to attack, but his movement is clumsy compared to Zaha's speed. Suddenly, the villain freezes mid-strike, confused by what he just felt. Zaha wears a look of feigned confusion, but his hand has already moved. Sweat pours down the enemy's face as the realization begins to dawn. In a lightning-fast strike, the dagger that was on the table now pierces the villain's hand against the wood. Zaha tilts his head and says, "Cho-i-gul, now let me ask you something as well. Give me a single reason why I should let you leave here alive." Igul freezes, the shock of pain and fear completely paralyzing his senses. One of the henchmen calls out from behind that the hole is almost ready, oblivious that his master is the one who will use it. Zaha gives the order with terrifying calm. "Dig a little deeper." He sarcastically remarks that Igul must have experienced some kind of spiritual enlightenment to be so quiet. Igul's face contorts in pure hatred as he tries to process the humiliation. Zaha sarcastically offers congratulations, toying with the life of the fallen man. The villain tries to react, but each move only makes the blade tear further into his flesh. He lets out a sound of surprise, realizing Zaha isn't just toying with him, he's executing him. The close quarters combat is short and brutal, with Zaha dominating every inch of the space. He moves like a phantom, impossible for such filthy hands to touch. Igul's scream of agony echoes through the forest as Zaha decides to end the farce. Zaha asks again what that hole was for, as Igul drags himself across the ground. The villain tries to speak, but Zaha cuts him off, declaring that everything coming from that mouth is trash. With a dull thud, Igul's body hits the ground, defeated and broken. Silence reigns once more as Zaha cleans the blood from his blade with utter indifference. He questions if a man like that truly believes there's a reason for him to keep breathing. Some of the people you killed were my acquaintances, Zaha reveals, his eyes blazing with fury. Igul tries one last desperate gamble, threatening that the Black Cat Union will never forgive this murder. He starts to beg, but the sentence was passed long ago. The sound of the blade finding its mark silences Igul's threats once and for all. The villain stares into nothingness, realizing his arrogance dug the very grave he planned for another. Blood gushes, staining the earth he himself ordered to be dug up. Zaha warns that he asked for a reason to live, not an empty threat from a coward. He kicks the body away with disdain, closing that bloody chapter. The boy's gaze now turns to the shadows, where other hidden eyes observe him. 3 masked men tremble, witnessing their master cut down like an animal. Zaha senses their presence and gestures for them to emerge from hiding. They let out sounds of terror, realizing they stand no chance against that monster. Zaha asks why they're so surprised, considering their boss died purely from incompetence. The masked men freeze, awaiting the blade that will surely follow. One of them asks who the hell he is, and Zaha replies that he's merely a simple delivery man. He orders them all to remove their masks to see if he recognizes any of those faces. The men obey immediately, revealing faces etched with despair. Zaha notes he's never seen them in Ilyang and asks if they're part of the Black Cat Union. They deny it, explaining they just arrived to work at the local brothel. Zaha gives them a simple choice. Either all 3 die right here, right now, or they bury the corpse and run back to their hometowns, never to return. The men plead for their lives and swear they'll leave immediately. One of them explains he can't go home due to personal problems, but promises to vanish from Ilyang. The other 2 emphasize they'll do anything if he lets them live. Zaha orders them to bury the dead man and get out of his sight as fast as possible. But the man with nowhere to go asks if Zaha doesn't need a worker in the kitchen. Zaha stops and stares at the man, who seems serious about his request. He asks if the man knows how to cook and if he can make a decent chicken noodle soup. The young man brightens, saying that's the basics, assuring him his soup is the best in the region. Zaha ignores his enthusiasm and tells him to worry about his own life for now. The man kneels in gratitude, feeling like he just received a miraculous second chance. Zaha walks away, leaving the trail of destruction behind him. He enters his inn, feeling the chessboard is beginning to shift in his favor. Suddenly, a familiar figure emerges from the shadows of the room, the white-haired master with the eye patch. Cha Sung-tae comments, surprised, that Zaha truly managed to defeat the dangerous Cho Igul. Zaha asks if he truly thought someone of that caliber would be a challenge and notes that Sung-tae's eyes look perfectly fine. The master smiles and admits the eye injury was merely part of his conspiracy to escape danger. He elegantly closes his fan, acting as if he's the cleverest man in town. Sung-tae explains he faked the injury to observe the situation from afar while pretending to be at the doctor's. He boasts, saying he's a very useful man and quick-witted for any situation. The master looks at Zaha, expecting some praise for his cowardly cunning. Zaha merely replies with a dry, well done, showing no emotion whatsoever. Sung-tae thanks him, stating he had no other choice to stay alive amidst the chaos. Zaha changes his tone and states with deadly calm that he will kill all of them. He explains that if things are left as they are, Ilyang province will suffer even more at the hands of these bandits. Sungtae agrees, but warns that Cho Ilseom is the region's worst villain and demands absolute caution. Zaha breaks the serious mood and calls the master by his name, very directly. Sungtae responds promptly, expecting an important strategic order for the war. Zaha asks him to go buy snacks, as they have drinks but nothing to accompany them. The master freezes and stares at Zaha, unable to believe the conversation shifted from murder to food so quickly. He asks, incredulously, if there isn't a single snack in the entire inn. Zaha confirms there's nothing and continues to look at him with a bored expression. Sungtae grumbles that it's a very strange inn and asks for money for the groceries. Zaha simply says he has no money to give him either. The master laments the state of the place, which was once famous for its delicious chicken soup. Zaha tells him to stop complaining and buy plenty of food, including whatever he likes. He warns that whatever is left today, they'll eat tomorrow, treating the master as if he were his personal servant. Sungtae storms out of the room, fuming, while Zaha watches from the doorway with a subtle smile. The master looks back and asks what it is now, already irritated by the situation. Zaha asks if he's going for a stroll, seeing as he's walking so slowly and lazily. The two stare at each other from a distance. In a power game where Sungtae is clearly losing, the white-haired master loses his patience and lets out a cry of frustration. He grumbles that he never imagined he'd be running errands for a mere delivery boy. Rage is visible on the face of the man who once commanded the entire local underworld. He curses as he runs through the night, hating every second of that public humiliation. Sometime later, the food finally arrives at the table and the mood seems a bit lighter. Sungtae attacks the dishes with gusto, trying to make up for the exertion of his run. Zaha watches the master eat and begins to speak about the origin of that money. He says that since Sungtae bought everything with his precious money, he should enjoy it thoroughly. The master confirms he's savoring every bite as much as he can. Zaha throws it in his face that the money came from exploiting women and selling cheap drinks as if they were luxury items. He asks if the brothel manager has lost his appetite now that the truth has been laid bare on the table. Sungtae stops chewing instantly, feeling the weight of Zaha's words in his stomach. He lets out a long sigh, realizing he can't hide his dark past from the boy. Zaha asks if he's angry, provoking the master with a piercing gaze. Sungtae admits that what truly irritates him is that all this expensive food now tastes horrible. He tries to change the subject and focus on the real problem awaiting them outside. The master confesses he's worried about the Black Cat Union's reaction if the Cho brothers die. Zaha tells him to stop being a child and train to get stronger instead of just complaining. He imitates Sungtae's whining voice, mocking the master's lack of initiative. Sungtae feels cornered and asks what they should do then to survive what's coming. In a sudden movement, he stands up from the table and shouts, asking who Zaha thinks he is. The boy merely tilts his head and calmly asks, "Do you, by any chance, wish to die?" The pressure in the air shifts instantly, and Sungtae realizes he crossed the line with the wrong person. He sits back down, swallowing his pride in the face of that suffocating bloodlust. The master then suggests they kill all those damn Black Cat Union members at once. Zaha agrees and says he'll take care of Cho Ilseom as soon as he finishes his drink. Sungtae is shocked by the casual tone, saying that Zaha talks about killing villains as if it were just going to the restroom. Zaha explains that the biggest problem isn't Ilseom, but his younger brother, Cho Sampyeong. He admits he has no idea where the youngest of the Cho brothers is currently hidden. Sungtae reveals that it's almost time for Sampyeong to return home from his trip. Zaha asks if, when he returns, the master has the courage to kill him with his own hands. Sungtae puffs out his chest, declaring himself Cha Sungtae, capable of handling someone like that on his own. But then he immediately backs down, admitting that with his injured eye, things might be a bit difficult. Zaha loses his patience, demanding he decide once and for all if he's a warrior or a coward. The master tries to maintain his composure, asking if Zaha has never heard of his fame as the man of stealth. Zaha cuts the small talk, asking if Sung-tae guarantees he can take control of the brothels after the Cho family's downfall. He calls the master an idiot and warns that he already knows who Sung-tae is, so there's no need for deceptive propaganda. Zaha reflects that it won't be possible to get rid of all the underworld's evils at once, but he wants to ensure everyone receives fair value for their hard work. He plans to care for the sick and allow those who wish to return home, though he knows it will be difficult. Sung-tae looks at him with a mix of doubt and admiration for this strange idealism. Zaha reaffirms that they must do this, no matter how complicated it seems. He warns that this will be far better than Sung-tae ending up dying by his own hands. The warning hangs in the air, a promise of death for anyone who betrays the new order. Do everything right. If I leave this to you and it turns into a hell, I'll personally hand you over to the Cho family. The master swallows hard, feeling the crushing weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He explodes again, declaring he's fed up with being threatened with death every 5 minutes. Sung-tae threatens to retire and flee to the mountains for some peace. Zaha says that if they win, Sung-tae will have 3 brothels, but if he doesn't want them, Zaha can find someone else for the position. The master changes his mind instantly, saying that perhaps it's still too early for him to retire. Zaha stands up and begins to undress in front of the master, without offering any explanation. Sung-tae looks confused, asking why Zaha is taking off his clothes in the middle of their meal. Zaha ignores the question and orders the master to take off his clothes too, causing total shock. The master is left speechless, his face pale at the boy's strange request. Zaha insists on the order brutally, while Sung-tae curses softly about his luck. He calls Zaha a thief, but begins to obey out of sheer fear of what might happen. The two stand there, in a moment of tension no one expected to happen right now. Zaha returns to discussing Cho Il-seom, keeping the focus on the night's main target. The master agrees, spitting a final insult at the villain, but what he doesn't realize is that the true danger stands right before him, bearing the marks of one who has already survived hell. Take my clothes and kill him. Zaha gives the cold order, making it clear that the game has now leveled up. The white-haired master pauses for a second, admitting that the boy is far smarter than he thought. He knows that entering that brothel in old clothes would be asking to be denied entry or attract too much attention right away. The two remain silent as the role reversal occurs, an invisible tension hanging in the inn's air. Zaha begins to dress, focusing on what comes next, completely ignoring his companion's low grumbles. "How do I look?" Zaha asks, now dressed in the fine clothes that once belonged to the brothel manager. "Ah, spectacular as always," Sung-tae replies with a forced smile, trying to lighten the mood of the situation. He comments that Zaha looks like a mere errand boy, yet at the same time exudes the presence of a master. Zaha stares at his reflection and says that, upon closer inspection, he is much more handsome than people usually notice. "Since you only wore beggar's rags, you looked like a homeless man," Sung-tae jokes, but Zaha's glare immediately cuts short the fun. "Ah!" The master lets out a short yelp as Zaha makes a sudden movement, reminding him who's in charge. "Stop playing around!" The protagonist's voice is a whip, and Sung-tae merely lowers his head and obeys without question. Zaha warns that Sung-tae's old habits are returning just because he's being friendly, and this cannot happen again. "I'll be back soon." He walks toward the exit, with the posture of one about to change the city's destiny. Before crossing the threshold, he gives Sung-tae a final warning to be very careful with his clothes. The inn's courtyard is dark, and Zaha's silhouette merges with the shadows as he departs. Sung-tae stays behind, watching the youth leave with a mix of fear, respect, and an anger he cannot show. "Good luck, ye Zaha, you scoundrel," he whispers, cursing the fate that placed him in the path of that monster. Moments later, Zaha arrives before the grand structure of the brothel, where guards in green tunics watch the main entrance. "Welcome. Is the owner, Cho Il-seom, around?" Zaha asks with a calm that doesn't match the hostile environment. The guard puffs out his chest and demands to know where the visitor comes from before allowing any passage. "I'm from the Black Cat Union. Take me to Cho Il-seom now." Zaha lies with chilling naturalness. The guard hesitates upon hearing the name of the powerful union and tries to ask the young man's name as a precaution. With no patience for bureaucracy, Zaha delivers a swift strike that makes the guard stagger and lose his breath instantly. "Shut up, I'm busy," he snarls at the fallen man, demanding to be taken to the leader without further questions. "My apologies," the guard stammers, feeling that if he opens his mouth again, he might lose his head right there. They enter the luxurious complex, traversing corridors adorned with the wealth stolen from the hardworking people of Ilyang. "Please, follow me." The guard now guides Zaha with complete submission, fearing the dangerous aura the boy emanates. Zaha walks with his hands behind his back, observing every detail of the place, as if evaluating the price of its destruction. They ascend the wide stairs, passing lanterns that illuminate the path to the serpent's nest he came to hunt. The guide asks him to wait for a moment while he goes to inform the boss about the union's unexpected visit. Zaha stands in the center of the reception hall, ignoring the curious glances of the other employees circulating there. The sound of the guard's footsteps fades, leaving Zaha alone with his thoughts and his desire for bloody justice. He approaches the main chair, the improvised throne where Cho Il-seom dictates the orders that spread misery. This is impressive. He observes the opulence of the hall, feeling disgust grow within him with each passing second. He realizes that Il-seom planned to use this luxury to impress the Black Cat Union and gain status in the martial world. Suddenly, the door opens and a bearded man in a green robe enters, exuding an arrogant and heavy authority. "This is the first time I've seen you," Cho Il-seom says, narrowing his eyes at the young man sitting in his place. Rage boils within the leader upon seeing this unknown brat treating his hall as if it were his own home. "Visiting me so late at night and still sitting in my chair?" he snarls, each word laden with a mortal threat. Il-seom notes that the boy didn't even bother to stand or greet him when he entered the room. "What is your rank within the Black Cat Union?" he asks, attempting to gauge the danger before attacking. Zaha remains seated, a smirk playing on his lips, signifying he fears absolutely nothing in this place. Il-seom says he was warned by his subordinates, but something about the young man's posture doesn't seem to align with reality. Zaha's gaze is icy, focused solely on the neck of the man he has decided will die today. "Right," the protagonist responds curtly, letting the silence weigh heavier than any war cry. Il-seom explodes, calling him insane and demanding how he dares to challenge the authority of the Cho family in such a way. "My brother left saying he was going to kill you." He begins to realize that something went terribly wrong on the way. "Don't you realize the reason I'm alive is because he's dead?" Zaha drops the bombshell with calm tranquility. Cho Il-seom's face loses color for an instant, the shock of the revelation hitting him like a punch to the gut. "My brother," he stammers the name as the reality of Cho Eagle's death begins to sink into his mind. Fury replaces shock, and veins bulge on the villain's face as he unleashes his internal energy. "Yes, he decided to pay me a visit." Zaha slowly rises, like a predator tired of playing with its prey. The atmosphere in the room instantly shifts, the air growing heavy and difficult to breathe due to the pressure of their two energies. Cho Il-seom waits no longer and charges like a hurricane, determined to crush his brother's killer. Zaha moves with millimeter precision, deflecting the first attack without even disturbing his new clothes. Their hands clash with a resounding bang that makes the hall's windows tremble and dust rise from the floor. The fight is swift and violent, a dance of death where every movement could be the last for either of them. The villain attempts a low kick to break Zaha's stance, but finds only air as the boy floats. They grapple in the center of the hall, measuring pure strength in a clash of internal energy that cracks the floor. Il-seom feels an overwhelming pressure emanating from Zaha's hands, a force he has never seen in a young man. The leader's eyes widen in panic as he realizes he's being pushed back by sheer brute force. "I lost in terms of internal energy?" He screams mentally, unable to believe what he's feeling. Zaha stares at him with contempt, knowing the enemy's technique is full of flaws and based only on fear. The villain remembers that this boy was just a luggage carrier a few days ago, and this drives him mad. Why the hesitation? Zaha provokes, increasing the energy charge and making Ilseom's bones begin to crackle. If you won't attack, then I will. The protagonist unleashes a direct blow that shatters the opponent's defense like paper. Ha! Ilseom lets out a cry of pain and effort, desperately trying to regain his balance before the next impact. He attempts a desperate palm strike, channeling all the rage remaining in his meridians. Zaha intercepts the strike in midair and spins his body, using the villain's own force to hurl him against the wall. Leader Cho flies through the air, crashing into the luxurious decorations he so cherished, turning them into splinters. The protagonist offers no respite, already upon him even before his body hits the ground. A flurry of rapid blows strikes Ilseom's vital points, sealing his fate in less than 10 seconds. The sound of breaking bones echoes through the empty hall, a cruel reminder that the Cho tyranny has ended. Cho Ilseom collapses like a sack of sand, blood streaming down his face as he tries, unsuccessfully, to rise. He looks up, seeing Zaha's silhouette against the lantern light, appearing like a merciless god of death. The villain coughs violently, his breath escaping his lungs as he feels life rapidly draining away. Kyuk! A final groan of agony escapes his throat before his head lolls to the side. The Grand Hall, once the symbol of his power, is now merely the stage for his pathetic end. Zaha steps away from the body, cleaning his hands and adjusting his blue tunic with a chilling calm that freezes the blood of any observer. He surveys the surrounding destruction, knowing he has cleansed a portion of the filth that had infected this city for so long. He mutters, assessing if any remnants of life clung to the man who thought himself untouchable. A faint cough emanates from the floor, showing that the villain still refuses to surrender his soul to hell. Ilseom tries to speak, but only more blood escapes his mouth as he stares at the ceiling with empty eyes. "How can you use such techniques?" he asks, his voice no more than a hoarse, desperate whisper. Zaha leans over him, his face shrouded in shadows, becoming the final nightmare of that corrupt man. "Kyuk!" Zaha seizes him by the neck, lifting him off the ground with a single hand, displaying superhuman strength. "Is it right for trash like you to train, but wrong if a mere errand boy trains?" The question is laden with venom. The pressure on Ilseom's neck intensifies, and he struggles uselessly to break free as his eyes roll back. Zaha states that, despite years of dominance in the village, the Chos only ever used the lives of others for personal gain. Whoa, wait. The villain pleads one last time, but mercy is a word Zaha forgot long ago. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoes on the stairs and guards appear at the top, paralyzed by the horror of the scene. The Lord has been attacked. They shout in unison, but no one dares to step forward against the monster in the hall. To hell with it. What good is arriving after your Lord is already dead? Zaha releases the lifeless body. He turns to the crowd and announces that the leader of the Black Cat Union has changed his mind about the new sect. Zaha warns that he used Cho Ilseom as an example, and anyone who questions the decision will meet the same end. He points to the corpse on the floor, making it clear that the era of terror for that family has ended today. The guards exchange glances, fear etched on every pale face before the display of absolute power. Get out of the way if you want to live. Zaha walks towards the exit with an authority no one can challenge. Someone in the crowd gasps in surprise, recognizing the young man's face in the brighter light of the corridor. What? It's Zaha, the errand boy from the inn? The whisper spreads like wildfire among the henchmen. One of them confirms that, despite the expensive clothes, he is absolutely sure it's the same employee they saw every day. Mental confusion grips the men. They cannot process how a nobody became a master killer. "I am the errand boy." Zaha stops and looks over his shoulder, confirming his identity with a grim smile. He asks if they are angry now that they know they were defeated by a mere inn-worker. "If anyone wishes to follow Cho Ilseom to hell, step forward now." The challenge hangs in the air. He grips the hilt of his sword, ready to turn the corridor into a sea of blood if anyone dares to move. Ha! He lets out a dry laugh, seeing them all recoil, too cowardly to defend their departed master. A guard stutters, asking why he did it, and Zaha merely returns the question with utter contempt. Did that scoundrel have a good reason to kill people around here? With that sentence, he leaves the brothel behind. The night remains silent outside, while the survivors inside the building tremble with pure dread. Zaha walks back home, his footsteps echoing on the dirt ground as the adrenaline from the fight begins to subside. I thought you were going to kill Cho Il-seum. Why are you back so soon? Sung-tae asks as he sees him enter the inn. He's already departed. It seems even criminals can move on to a better place. Zaha replies with icy irony. Lies! Sung-tae shouts, unable to believe that the region's most feared villain was eliminated in such a short time. If you don't believe me, go check for yourself. Zaha walks past him, unwilling to waste time on useless explanations. The white-haired master stands there, shocked, processing that the boy left and returned in a matter of minutes. He notices that Zaha is in perfect form, without a single scratch or sign of fatigue after the execution. Silence falls over the inn as Sung-tae watches the young man ascend to his room with firm steps. How did this brat get so strong so quickly? He wonders, a shiver running down his spine. From upstairs, Zaha shouts down for him to clean everything before leaving and to take care of the entire inn while he's at it. This damned bastard dares to order Cha Sung-tae to clean? The master seethes with indignant fury at such audacity. Ha! He lets out a sigh of defeat, knowing he has no power whatsoever to deny that monster's request. Where the hell is the broom? He starts searching, accepting his new fate as Zaha's personal cleaner. Upstairs, Zaha sits in the lotus position, feeling that he has finally resolved the urgent matters of the night. He begins to circulate his internal energy, feeling the heat flow through his meridians like a river of fire. I'm getting strong much faster than I imagined, he thinks, focused on not letting this chance slip away. He exhales the stale air from his lungs, letting the state of deep meditation take hold of all his senses. Zaha's face relaxes, but the aura around his body begins to vibrate with a dangerous and mystical intensity. Hours pass as he dives into the depths of his own cultivation, seeking to break through the barriers of his previous power. The sun begins to rise on the horizon, illuminating the inn, which now seems much quieter and safer without the Cho clan. In the city, people begin to wake up, and the first rumors about the brothel massacre start to circulate. Is it true that Cho Il-seum died? One man asks another on the street, fear still present in his voice. Stories say that the errand boy from Zaha's inn killed him, but no one can believe it's real. Sung-tae walks through the village, hearing the whispers and realizing that his master's reputation is growing with each passing second. Inside the room, Zaha lets out a heavy sigh, feeling that he has reached a new milestone on his martial journey. He declares he has conquered the Wood Realm and is now approaching the feared Dark Realm. He realizes that although he achieved this in his past life, the depth of his current understanding is far superior. I'm sure I can become stronger than in my previous life. Determination gleams in his eyes. Oh, my room is a mess. He looks around and notices the deplorable state of the place after the intensive session. He senses the horrendous stench emanating from his own body, a mix of sweat, dried blood, and expelled impurities. However, he smiles, knowing that this fetid odor is a clear sign that his cultivation has advanced successfully. This means his body is now much purer, and his meridians are cleaner than ever before. Ack! What is that smell? He screams, finally hit by his own post-training lack of hygiene. It smells like something's rotting. What happened here? Sung-tae asks as he opens the room door. Zaha looks at him indifferently, while the master almost falls backward from the wall of stench that hits him. Ha! What a smell! Sung-tae covers his nose with his tunic sleeve, trying not to vomit right there on the floor. Did you soil yourself completely? What? The master asks, shocked at the possibility of the boy having lost control. Ugh! Sung-tae makes a face of absolute disgust, backing away into the hallway to get some fresh air. He questions why Zaha did that in the room, and complains that the smell is the most horrendous thing he's ever experienced. I don't think it was just once either. This bastard, he continues grumbling, thinking Zaha has finally lost his mind. Ah! Ack! Zaha lets out a shout of frustration and tells the master to shut up and stop talking nonsense. The entire inn now seems infected by the odor of Zaha's martial evolution, much to Sungtae's despair. The protagonist stands up, feeling light despite the grime, and decides he urgently needs a bath to clean himself. Excellent, he says to himself, feeling the renewed power flowing through every muscle of his purified body. Go take a bath now, Sungtae orders from downstairs, still coughing because of the smell that has permeated the walls. Don't come near me! The master screams when he sees Zaha descending, fearing he'll be contaminated by the unbearable stench. He asks why the boy won't even put down his knife to take a bath, while making a face like he's about to faint. I swear, Zaha mutters, tired of the dramatic complaints from his now subordinate and on-call cleaner. He walks towards the bathing area, leaving a trail of foul odor wherever he goes in the empty inn. Zaha's face shows a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. The path to becoming the martial god is long and dirty. Later, in a luxurious bathing room, a woman in a red dress patiently waits with towels in hand. The atmosphere is warm and steamy, creating a calm ambiance that Zaha hadn't felt in a long time. "Che Hang, why are you here?" he asks upon seeing her, surprised by the young woman's presence in the room. He steps into the wooden bathtub, letting the warm water relax his muscles, tense from battles and cultivation. "I am here to assist you with your bath," she replies with a soft voice, keeping her head bowed in respect. "Huh? What are you talking about?" Zaha seems genuinely confused by the offer of help in such a private moment. "I came because Brother Sungtae told me to." She explains, revealing that the master sent reinforcements to clean up the smell. "If you don't want me to do anything, I'll at least dry you off when you're done." She insists, determined to fulfill her task. Zaha merely observes the young woman in silence, realizing that even his moments of rest are controlled by Sungtae's schemes. Chae-hyung hears she no longer needs to come here, and the atmosphere becomes heavy. Zaha warns that he will resolve this situation with Sungtae personally, right now. He reinforces that she is free from any obligation she doesn't wish to follow. "I've told you before," he speaks with a firm and serious voice. Zaha expects her to behave as a hostess worthy of the inn. He mentally curses Sungtae for sending the young woman to do things no one asked for. Chae-hyung merely observes the protagonist in silence as the smoke rises. She humbly tries to apologize for what happened in the past. "It's fine. That's all in the past," Zaha replies, not giving it much importance. "I heard you were strong." She asks why he was beaten before. Zaha explains that he needed a just reason to hunt each of them down later. For a gentleman's revenge, 10 years is not too long, he reflects. The clock of destiny begins to tick the moment enemies attack. The young woman is confused and asks if such a popular saying truly exists. "No, I just made it up." He gives a subtle smirk. Silence once again fills the bathhouse as he relaxes. Zaha closes his eyes for a second, feeling the hot water on his body. He thinks that feminine beauty tricks would never work against someone like him. A memory of someone calling him a crazy stallion now surfaces in his mind. The voice in the memory says he doesn't like ordinary beautiful women. It's for this bizarre reason that the enemy's plans failed so miserably. Two silhouettes gaze at the horizon in a memory that feels quite distant to him. Suddenly, Sungtae bursts in, screaming that the inn is actually on fire. "Why so afraid of a silly fire?" Zaha asks, without leaving the bathtub. "The fire started in your quarters," the master warns, his face pale. Zaha's gaze changes instantly, and the amusement ends at that very moment. Flames spread rapidly through the wooden beams of the ancient, old structure. A crowd gathers outside, watching the complete destruction of the house. Cho Sampyeong orders everyone to listen carefully to what he is about to say. "I will kill anyone who helps or hides the errand boy," he seriously threatens. He scoffs, saying he set the fire without even removing his brother's body. Sampyeong's face overflows with arrogance as the flames shimmer. "Who's there?" he shouts, sensing a presence emerging from the smoke. He turns furiously, searching for the intruder who dared to interrupt his speech. "It's me, you bastard!" Zaha appears, calmly walking towards his enemies. The protagonist bears an icy gaze that promises endless carnage. "Who the hell are you?" Sampyeong asks, stammering upon seeing the shadowy figure. "You burn my house and still ask who I am?" Zaha retorts, annoyed. The villain realizes it's the errand boy and is in total shock. Nung Ji-sok asks if that is the target, and Sampyeong confirms, trembling profusely. "You brought me here to kill a mere errand boy?" Ji-sok scoffs now. The veteran questions how they plan to found a sect while being so useless. He can't believe an entire group is suffering because of a brat. Ji-sok stares at Sampyeong with a disdain that cuts deeper than any sharp blade. The man in yellow tries to explain himself, but the words die in his throat. Sweat drips down the villain's face as he realizes he's been disgraced. "If I have to draw my sword because of him," Ji-sok begins to speak. He claims the entire martial world would laugh in his face for it. "Kill him yourself now," the Sunbae orders with terrifying calm. Sampyeong hesitates and hears that if he fails, he should join his dead brothers. Ji-sok makes it clear that death is the only option for anyone who fails here. The villain swallows hard and admits that the veteran is absolutely right. Zaha steps forward and says they should at least have some common sense. "Fight me yourself, right now." He challenges with complete confidence. The scene is one of war, with the inn burning fiercely in the background. Ji-sok remarks that the boy has an ego too big for his stature. He lets out a scoff, as if watching a bad joke unfold. All right. Sampyeong accepts the challenge, trying to regain some composure. "I, Nung Ji-sok of the Black Hurricane Castle." The veteran introduces himself solemnly. He declares he will be the official witness to this deadly battle until its end. The two opponents glare at each other as the fire illuminates the execution ground. Sampyeong wonders how his brothers could have lost to this strange kid. He grips the hilt of his sword tightly, preparing his first fatal move. Zaha realizes Ji-sok is cunning and merely analyzing his true abilities. The veteran wants to gauge the protagonist's power before getting personally involved. Sampyeong advances with heavy steps, kicking up dust from the beaten ground. The protagonist doesn't move an inch, keeping his guard completely open. The enemy unleashes a sword strike, but Zaha deflects it with mystical ease. "What?" Zaha asks with a mocking tone that enrages his opponent. "Draw your sword, now!" Sampyeong roars, losing his patience with the situation. "I don't need a sword to deal with someone of your caliber," Zaha replies. "How dare you?" The villain attacks furiously, unleashing a flurry of rapid strikes. The sound of impact echoes as Zaha blocks everything with just his bare hands. He moves with a fluidity that defies the laws of physics itself. Another thunderous crash occurs, and the earth trembles beneath the fighter's feet. Zaha lands a solid blow that sends the villain staggering backward. Sampyeong falls to his knees, spitting blood as he tries to regain his lost breath. "Stop overreacting," Zaha says as the other man coughs in pain. He reveals he wasn't even using half of his true strength. The villain's gaze is filled with pure terror as he realizes the power gap. With a cry of desperation, he attempts one last suicidal attack against Zaha. "You're too sloppy," the protagonist comments with chilling calm. He dodges the blow and prepares the counterattack that will end it all. Zaha says his brothers were equally bad and utterly talentless. "It's best if none of you ever return to this village," he declares coldly. Zaha's fist connects with Sampyeong's chest in a resounding crack. The force of the impact pierces through the villain's body, shattering his bones. The man in yellow is flung backward as if a rag doll. He collapses motionless on the ground, defeated and humiliated in front of everyone present. Zaha remains standing, an aura of power emanating from every pore. He looks down at the fallen enemy without a hint of pity. The protagonist's face is grim, illuminated only by the remaining embers. He takes a deep breath, feeling the internal energy circulate freely through his purified body. The villagers whisper in disbelief, wondering if this is truly Zaha, the inn boy. No one can understand how a mere worker became so powerful out of nowhere. "What crime did the inn commit to deserve this?" Zaha asks the calm wind. Ji-sok admits the boy has some skill and begins to walk away. He warns that they will see each other again soon if anything else happens here. "Where do you think you're going, you bastard?" Zaha cuts off his retreat. The veteran stops dead in his tracks, feeling the murderous pressure radiating from behind him. He turns his face with a look of pure fury and impatience now. "Don't mess with me! I don't care who you are!" Jisok snarls lowly. Zaha walks towards him, hand ready for the kill. He questions if the man truly thought he would get away scot-free after the arson. The protagonist's gaze is fixed on the enemy's neck like a predator. "Did you think I'd be nice and just let you walk away without a word?" Jisok realizes there's no escape and prepares to fight for real. He makes a quick move, but Zaha is far swifter than him. "What the hell?" the villain exclaims, witnessing the protagonist's speed. The clash begins, and invisible blades of energy slice through the dry air. Jisok tries to keep his distance, but Zaha presses him relentlessly, giving no quarter. The young man moves like a black lightning bolt, streaking across the battlefield. His technique is flawless, and every movement carries a clear, lethal intent. Jisok lets out a strained grunt as he tries to block the heavy blows. "Ha!" he screams, attempting to use his secret technique to turn the tide. Zaha merely observes the man's futile efforts with profound boredom. He spots an opening in the enemy's guard and doesn't hesitate for a single second. Zaha's eye glows with a bloodlust that terrifies all who witness it. A sharp, cutting sound tears through the night's silence as he lunges forward. Zaha's attack is so swift that Jisok's vision blurs. The veteran realizes too late that his life has reached its end in that instant. The protagonist focuses all his energy into a single, lethal point of impact. Jisok flies backward, his chest torn open by Zaha's devastating blow. Blood splatters onto the ground as the swordsman's lifeless body collapses. The thud of the corpse against the ground echoes as a warning to all. The silence that follows is absolute, and no one dares even breathe now. Zaha wipes the sweat from his face and looks at the crowd observing him. He walks calmly amidst the smoldering wreckage of his former abode. The protagonist stops before the villagers, and their fear is almost palpable. The people instinctively recoil as he approaches with firm, slow steps. The white-haired man lets out a sound of surprise upon seeing the outcome. He remarks that even Cho Sampyeong was easily wiped off the map. His gaze fixes on the fallen body, and his astonishment only grows. "Who the hell is this guy anyway?" he asks himself now. A group of men in green robes observes the scene with utter dread. "Who said you could burn down someone else's house?" Zaha asks. "Do you want me to burn you all down too?" he threatens with a grim tone. The henchmen tremble from head to toe, unable to even formulate a reply. "We are so sorry," their leader screams, bowing desperately on the ground. "Please, let us live." They beg for their miserable lives now. Zaha repeats the question, wanting to know the real reason behind the arson. He grows irritated by the silence, and the pressure in the air drastically intensifies. The master in red robes suggests they burned it because the place smelled bad. When I smelled it, my first thought was also to burn everything down. They argue whether someone defecated inside the inn to cause that unbearable stench. Zaha seriously ponders whether to kill that smart mouth or let him live. Cha Sung-tae, the protagonist, calls the master with an authoritative voice. "Take these idiots and rebuild Zaha's inn," he promptly orders now. Sung-tae asks why him, and hears that Zaha has been too kind. "Are you sure I wouldn't hurt you?" Zaha asks with a smile. The master falls into absolute silence, seeing the danger in his eyes. "Since we're doing it, let's make it better than it was before." He plans an impressive 2-story building to be their new base. Zaha wants a high wall and enough space for intense martial training there. Sung-tae asks if he wants to build a dojo instead of an inn. "Build a training ground that also functions as an inn," he says. The master agrees, saying he will keep all these details in mind. "Let's call it Zaha's Training Inn," Sung-tae suggests now. Zaha tells him to seek out talents while they work on building the new headquarters. Sung-tae questions if the Black Cat Union will just stand by and watch this. "If they don't stand by, I'll deal with each of them myself." "What will be the name of our organization?" the master asks, curious. "Hao Mun." Zaha replies with the name that will soon make the world tremble. He reveals that this was his first sect, and it will be reborn here now. Sung-tae repeats the name, feeling the historical weight those words carry. So, should I call you Munmaster from now on? Do as you wish. Zaha replies, dismissing the importance of formal titles. Sung-tae says that in the last few days, he has realized Zaha is not the original. What? The protagonist asks, staring at him with a deep gaze. The master prepares to ask the question that could change everything between them. The white-haired man stares at Zaha with a doubt that gnaws at his mind. Why did you let me live? He cannot comprehend the mercy of someone as brutal as the village's new master. Zaha replies with a cold smile that he only left him alive to toy with him a little longer. Shock plasters the veteran's face at such arrogance and confidence. He realizes his life now utterly belongs to the whim of a monster in human form. It's better than dying. Absolutely. Night falls upon the inn as the tension inside only mounts with each passing minute. Zaha enters a state of deep meditation, seeking the perfect balance of his new power. His eyes close, but his senses are sharper than ever for any looming threat. Energy flows through his body like a controlled, deadly river of fire. Sung-tae watches from afar, worried about the trail of blood they just left behind. Outside, activity indicates that unwelcome visitors have just arrived at the location. Master Sung-tae enters the chambers with hurried steps and a face pale with fear. The night's silence is broken by the presence of dangerous men waiting in the courtyard. Zaha doesn't even stir, maintaining total focus on his internal cultivation despite the danger. He slowly opens his eyes, sensing the hostile aura approaching his doors. Who has come? He asks, showing not a hint of concern or haste. Sung-tae explains that they are men from the Black Cat Union who had strong ties with the Cho brothers. There are two of them. How should we deal with this now? The master asks, sweating coldly. I'll greet them myself. Zaha rises with a calmness that would unnerve anyone. Sung-tae trembles and questions if he really plans to fight the region's greatest force right now. Zaha knows they will demand tribute or try to recruit him into the Union's ranks. The master warns that it will be impossible to face the Black Cat Union if anything goes wrong in this encounter. It will be difficult for you, not for me. The short phrase cuts off any further discussion. Are you sending all of us to our deaths? Sung-tae panics completely at the response. Zaha assures him that he will be the first target of any attack before they reach the others. But I will not die. His confidence cuts through the air like a sharp blade. Sung-tae is left speechless by the blind and dangerous determination of his new ally. The two descend to the main hall, where the emissaries already wait with extreme arrogance. Then, take all the time you need. The master concedes, but fear is visible in his eyes. The doors swing open, and the atmosphere in the dining hall freezes instantly with Zaha's presence. Two men are seated at the table, acting as if they are the true masters of this place. The first introduces himself as John Pung, an elite officer from the dreaded Black Cat Union. The second is Han Go-wook, a brute overflowing with heavy, murderous intent. Go-wook stares Zaha up and down, attempting to gauge the boy's true strength. The protagonist maintains absolute silence, deeply irritating the two Union visitors. They can't believe a mere innkeeper dares to ignore authorities as powerful as themselves. I heard you killed the Cho brothers. Is that true? The question hangs heavy in the air. It is the truth, Zaha admits, not hesitating for a single second before his enemies. The tension in the room is so heavy, it feels like the walls might crack at any moment. The officials exchange glances, surprised by the brutal honesty of the young man before them. Why do you ask? Are you related to them, by chance? Zaha throws down the direct challenge. He scoffs, noting that the men's surnames don't even match those of the deceased Cho. Their silence confirms that their relationship was purely based on self-interest and power. Go-wook seethes with rage, wondering how this kid can be so arrogant and presumptuous. He believes Zaha has grown too conceited just because he defeated a few mediocre village fighters. Or perhaps, the boy truly possesses a secret technique they haven't been able to decipher yet. What? Why have you two suddenly gone so quiet? Zaha mercilessly provokes. He sits with complete nonchalance, dominating the atmosphere without even needing to touch a weapon. The emissaries realize that their usual cheap threats won't work on this individual. Just look at them. For those who came to collect debts, you're surprisingly calm. John Pung strokes his beard, trying to maintain minimal composure in the face of constant mockery. He reminds Zaha that the Cho brothers had official permission to establish a sect in that province. So what? Zaha cuts off the explanation with a coldness that chills the blood of anyone listening. The official warns that disrupting the union's work will bring terrible consequences for his future. I understand perfectly what you mean. Zaha smiles in an odd way. He breaks into an enigmatic smile that utterly confounds the two criminals before him. It seems you're not such a bad person after all. John Pung relaxes his shoulders slightly. They believe Zaha will finally yield and pay everything they came for. Let's have a drink first, the protagonist proposes, shifting the conversation towards something social. He requests the worst alcohol in the house and some cheap snacks for the guests. The woman in purple looks confused upon hearing Zaha's request for the lowest grade alcohol, but she quickly understands it's merely a way to humiliate the union officials. I understand. She responds with a discreet nod and quickly leaves to fetch the order. The atmosphere appears friendly on the surface, but beneath the table, real danger lurks. Go Wook insists they must reach a financial agreement before leaving. Why don't we focus on the alcohol for now? Zaha insists, his gaze dark and unwavering. Every word of his seems like a silent warning that patience is wearing thin. The men lose their temper, shouting that he won't get away with this gratuitous insolence. Why? Do you truly want to test your luck by fighting me here and now? Zaha's gaze becomes a death sentence, causing both officials to instinctively recoil. They wonder where such confidence comes from and if a deadly trap has been laid. Let me ask you something. The protagonist leans forward with a malicious glint. The lantern light reflects in his eyes, revealing a hidden, ravenous bloodlust. Do you think the Union can come here and save you if something happens now? He makes it clear that if he feared the Union, he would never have eliminated the Cho brothers. The weight of this revelation silences the emissaries, who finally understand the true extent of the danger. I assume you're better than the Cho brothers, who were quite sloppy fighters. Cold sweat trickles down the officials' faces as panic begins to dominate their minds. They realize too late that they are locked in a room with an unpredictable monster. Zaha maintains his sadistic smile, savoring the despair of those who moments ago tried to intimidate him with words. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts, and the men force nervous laughs to try and lighten the mood. The woman in purple returns, sensing that the air in the room is about to explode into violence. She delivers the drinks, observing the sudden and bizarre change in the two men's behavior. Don't worry, we'll speak highly of you to the Union headquarters. Really? I'll believe you then. Zaha pretends to fall for their bluster. They now praise Zaha for killing the Cho, claiming they couldn't stand those guys anyway, right? They laugh loudly to mask the absolute dread gripping their chests. Without wasting time, the two stand up and leave as fast as their legs will carry them. They practically run away from that cursed inn and its terrifying owner. Sung-tae approaches and asks if it was truly safe to let them leave alive like that. Zaha explains that killing them now would give the Union the perfect pretext for an all-out war. The Union only needs someone to obey orders, no matter who it is. In this region, the only one who concerns me is the Master of the 12 Celestial Palms. The feared exterminator is a name Zaha prefers not to attract attention to yet. He announces that he will enter training and orders Sung-tae to manage all confiscated assets. You will be the administrator of the Hao clan for now. What? The warning is clear. If he diverts funds, he will be permanently removed from his position. And what would happen to me if I were removed? Sung-tae asks, trembling from head to toe. What? Zaha turns with a gaze that silences any remaining doubt in Sung-tae's mind. That depends on me, since I am the sovereign leader of the clan. The message is delivered, and Sung-tae knows he shouldn't trifle with the master's trust. Sung-tae, congratulations on becoming an administrator. You've finally made it in life. The master's face is a mix of forced pride and absolute terror for the position. Zaha walks alone to the courtyard, focused on the long path to power ahead of him. Damn, it's hard to earn an honest living in the Jianghu, Sung-tae mutters to the walls alone. Elsewhere in the village, daily life seems to continue at its normal, peaceful pace for now. Zaha enters a small, humble noodle shop for a quiet meal. The owner, John Pung, greets him with respect. "You've come?" "Yes." Zaha sits, smelling the familiar aroma of homemade food rising to his face. "A bowl of noodles for you?" the cook asks with a sincere smile on his face. Zaha confirms the order as he observes the calm and relaxing movement around him. The man comments on how Zaha took care of all the Cho brothers without anyone's help. "That's right," he replies with the simplicity of someone discussing the day's weather. The cook fears that the Union will seek revenge and end up killing the innocent villagers. Zaha remembers that in his past life, this man also opposed the oppression of tyrants. He assures him that the Union will not come after him immediately, due to pure military strategy, and if there is a confrontation, he guarantees that ordinary people will not be affected. "You intend to face the Black Cat Union alone?" the man asks incredulously. "Yes." The short answer leaves no room for further doubts or discussions. The man finds it hard to believe, but acknowledges that Zaha has done the impossible before. "Looks like you're paying the bill today. Thanks for the meal. Are you exploiting a poor errand boy now?" Zaha jokes with his old friend. "You're no errand boy. You're the leader of the Hao clan, aren't you?" Zaha warns that the cook is now also part of the organization he founded. "Huh? I am? I don't recall signing any contract for that. Everyone I know personally is automatically enrolled in the clan. So, serve free noodles to your leader from now on. Understood?" The man grimaces as Zaha finishes savoring his well-deserved meal. The light-hearted conversation is the last moment of peace before the great storm gathers. Zaha finishes his plate, feeling strange, cold eyes watching him from afar. A mysterious, hooded man appears on the horizon, slowly walking towards him. The gaze beneath the straw hat is sharp as a deadly dagger. "Leader, someone's calling for you out on the street," the cook warns, tense. "Please, be very careful, master." He senses that the stranger is no mere customer. The man in red also feels the abrupt shift in the air, the atmosphere growing heavy. Zaha lets out a long, bored sigh, already imagining the trouble ahead. "You only call me leader when these annoying problems pop up." He stands and walks calmly outside, where the rain begins. The encounter unfolds in the middle of the deserted street, under a dark and ominous sky. "Who killed Noong Jisuk? Is it true it was a worm like you?" the hooded man demands. "Noong Jisuk." Zaha repeats the name, trying to recall his victims from memory. He feels he's heard that name somewhere in his previous life. The stranger partially reveals his face, showing scars from cruel, ancient battles. "Ah, that idiot kid?" Zaha finally remembers who the man is talking about. Rage explodes in the assassin's eyes at the protagonist's utter disrespect. Zaha recognizes the demonic sword twin, Wai Son Woo, his old and deadly enemy. In his past life, he died by Zaha's hands, and now fate has reunited them. "He died because he intentionally burned down my house." Zaha justifies with absolute coldness. "I see, but thanks to that, you will die here and now." Wai Son Woo threatens. "Do you think things will go exactly as you planned?" Zaha challenges with disdain. "Nothing will go right for you, just like nothing went right for your hair." The sword demon loses control. "I'll start by tearing that damned mouth of yours." He lunges like a black lightning bolt, his blade cutting through the rain with a deadly sound. His cloak flies as he unleashes swift and lethal strikes against the village hero. Zaha dodges by mere millimeters, feeling the cold vacuum of the enemy's sword whiz past. The combat becomes a dance of death amidst the raging storm. Zaha's feet glide across the wet ground with an agility that seems supernatural. Sparks fly as blades and techniques violently clash in the dark street. Wai Son Woo attacks relentlessly, trying to corner Zaha against the wooden walls. "You filthy bastard." He grinds his teeth in sheer frustration at failing to land a hit. Zaha knows that the twins always fight in pairs, and the second one must be hidden. He blocks a powerful blow that almost makes him falter before the brute force. The fight escalates, and every wrong move could mean absolute annihilation. Zaha prepares for the decisive counterattack, keeping his eyes sharp on every shadow. He notices a silhouette moving on the neighboring rooftops, confirming all his suspicions. Sunwoo will create an opening, and his hidden brother, Gu Young-soo, will attempt the ambush. The target will be Zaha's blind spot at the exact moment of his retaliation. Sung-tae watches the battle from afar, powerless before such a display of martial might. Stand ready, Zaha mentally commands, preparing to face both demons at once. The shock of reality hits Wai Son-woo like lightning, and he realizes that Zaha is no amateur, but a legendary martial master. He grinds his teeth and whispers to himself, feeling the weight of the pressure. A martial master? How did this kid hide so much power? The storm scourges the battlefield, and the villain curses his damned luck. This cursed rain just obstructs the view of the kill. Zaha maintains icy calm, his eyes fixed on every movement as the enemy's blade violently cuts through the air. The hero perceives the danger and alerts his allies about the ambush. There's another one hidden nearby. Keep your eyes open right now. Seon-woo is startled by the boy's perception and panics, looking around desperately. What? But where is this bastard hiding? The enemy tries to locate the reinforcement in the shadows of the rooftops, but the rain is dense. I don't see anyone here. He's lying. Suddenly, the movement in the shadows becomes real, and a deadly silhouette leaps from the darkness to attack Zaha's blind spot. Another master emerges amidst the raindrops, brandishing a heavy sword that promises to cleave anyone in its path today. The newcomer's feet touch the ground with supernatural lightness, indicating he is just as dangerous as the first demon brother there. The trap is complete, and Zaha now finds himself surrounded by two professional assassins who know no mercy. Son-woo lets out a macabre sigh of relief upon seeing his brother. Damn, you scared me. I thought you'd take forever to show up for the show. Zaha merely smiles, showing that none of this surprises him. Finally, the other coward decided to show his face to die with you. The bald man glares at the hero with pure hatred and asks, "You knew there were two of us from the start, didn't you, runt?" His brother warns about the real danger Zaha poses. Little brother, he's a martial master hiding his true strength. Be very careful today. The two demons position themselves on opposite sides, creating a death zone from which no ordinary man could escape alive or whole. Steel gleams under the lightning, and the sound of swords being drawn echoes like a funeral bell throughout the village. They advance in perfect synchrony, one attacking from above and the other from below, attempting to slice Zaha in seconds without giving him a chance to react. The bandana-wearing assassin's gaze is focused. He targets the hero's neck with the precision of someone who has killed hundreds of warriors. The bald man attacks with brute force, making the ground tremble with every heavy step he takes toward our cold-blooded protagonist. Zaha observes the duo with a disdain that irritates his aggressors, his mind calculating every flaw in a technique that seems full of openings. The fight reignites with even greater violence, transforming the muddy street into a true hell of metal, blood, and rainwater. Zaha's Sunbae decides it's time to even the odds, and draws his weapon. I'm joining the party too. Watch your backs. He moves with agility, blocking a blow that would have struck Zaha, showing that the hero is not fighting this battle alone in the dark. The Sunbae provokes the enemies with a mocking tone. Do you know what people call me? Probably not, but you'll soon find out. He continues his threat as he spins his blade. You'll discover my nickname the exact moment I plunge this steel into your chest. The white-haired man lets out a furious war cry. Prepare to face true terror. I won't leave any of you alive. Hatred explodes, and he charges forward like a wild animal. You damn bastard. I'll rip out your insolent tongue right now in front of everyone. A tense silence returns for a second before the final impact, where the fate of all involved will be decided by the edge of a sword. The master in purple enters the combat with an elegant stance. It's my turn to fight. Let's see if you can handle the shock. The Sunbae points at the most aggressive enemy and laughs. Hey, you filthy bald man. I'll start by cracking that egghead of yours first. He doesn't stop with the insults, wanting to destabilize his opponent. Show me the shine of that bald head as I split it in half. The bald villain completely loses control of his emotions. You'll regret being born. I'll send you straight to hell. He delivers a downward strike with all his weight. attempting to crush his opponent against the wet street. Sunbae lets out a pained groan as he's grazed, but his determination remains unyielding even against the enemy's strength. He stumbles for an instant, feeling the impact vibrate through his bones as the bald assassin prepares for the mercy blow. The fight turns chaotic, with bodies flying and swords clashing in a symphony of destruction that illuminates the dark night of the village. The Sunbae tries to recover, wiping away the blood that trickles, while Zaha watches from a distance with a calm that borders on the supernatural. He seems to be analyzing something profound in the enemy's movements, as if waiting for the perfect moment to end this horror show. Zaha notices something strange in his ally's posture, and his eyes gleam with a new understanding of the technique being used. The Sunbae lets out a tired sigh but still keeps his sword raised, daring the two demons to try their luck once more today. Zaha decides to intervene and speaks coldly. "I'm not falling for your little act. Get up already, you lazy bastard, and stop playing around." The Sunbae looks at the hero with a cynical smile. "Oh, you really noticed? I thought I was being quite convincing here." He stands up, dusting himself off and complaining about his clothes. "Damn it, I got mud all over my new outfit." The two allies stand side by side, emanating an aura of power that makes the enemies instinctively retreat, sensing the imminent danger. The Sunbae comments on the plan that failed due to the weather. If it hadn't been raining so much, they would have fallen perfectly into the trap. He laments not having ended the fight sooner. "I would have effortlessly sliced off their heads the moment they dropped their guard." The bald assassin is furious to realize he was underestimated. These bastards. They're mocking us right to our faces. The villainous duo prepares for the final attack, realizing that if they don't kill Zaha now, they won't have another chance to survive. Zaha merely watches in silence, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, ready to unleash a technique no one there has ever seen before. The hero makes one last malicious comment about the enemy. That one is trembling so much the rain seems to dance on his bald head. The villain grinds his teeth, letting out an animalistic growl. "Bastard! I'll make you swallow every one of those words before dawn arrives." The combat explodes on an epic scale, with movements so fast that the human eye can barely track the trajectory of the sharp blades. Sparks fly in all directions as metal clashes, creating flashes that compete with the lightning tearing through the village sky. Zaha deflects a deadly blow with a minimal tilt of his head, feeling the wind from the sword pass centimeters from his ear. He counterattacks with a powerful kick that sends one of the assassins crashing against the wooden wall of a nearby tea house. The structure groans and breaks under the impact, but the enemy quickly rises, driven by pure hatred and a desire for bloody revenge. Meanwhile, the Sunbae faces the other brother in a dance of swords that cuts raindrops in half in midair. Their technique is refined, the fruit of years of training in the darkest and most lethal martial arts existing in the Murim world. But Zaha is on another level. He moves as if he knows exactly where each blow will land, even before the opponent attacks. He blocks 3 simultaneous attacks with a single, fluid movement of his sheath, demonstrating a control of force that is simply absurd and lethal. The bald assassin attempts a desperate strike, spinning his weapon like a steel whirlwind that promises to destroy everything in its path. Zaha merely steps back, maintaining ideal distance, waiting for the opening he knows will appear in mere seconds of combat. The rain intensifies, washing away the blood that begins to stain the stone ground of the main plaza where the battle rages. Cries of effort and pain are muffled by the sound of thunder, creating a nightmare atmosphere that would terrify any ordinary warrior witnessing it. The hero now advances, no longer merely defending, but assuming the role of predator on this night of hunting sword demons. Each of his steps is firm and decisive, crushing the enemy's resistance with a spiritual pressure that makes even breathing difficult for them. The bandana-clad assassin attempts a secret technique, launching small hidden daggers that gleam with poison under the faint light of the street lanterns. With a swift hand movement, Zaha parries all the flying blades, which end up striking the wooden beams of the surrounding buildings. Despair begins to take over the villains' faces as they realize they are facing a monster disguised as an ordinary young swordsman. They attempt one last combined maneuver, joining their forces for a double strike that should be impossible for a single man to block. Zaha takes a deep breath and channels his mana, making the air around him vibrate with a bluish energy that freezes time for milliseconds. The impact is colossal, and a shockwave sweeps through the street, shattering windows and extinguishing the few lights that still resisted the storm. When the dust and smoke settle, Zaha remains standing, without a single scratch, while the attackers lie panting and wounded on the ground. The hero walks slowly towards them, the tip of his sword scraping the ground, producing a metallic sound that chills the blood. He stops before the assassin leader and stares at him with those red eyes that promise only absolute, irreversible demise. The villain tries to beg, but his voice dies in his throat before the overwhelming presence of Chun Ha-jin, the true god of martial arts. Death hangs in the air, and the ozone smell of the storm mixes with the metallic odor of fresh blood now flowing. Zaha raises his weapon for the final blow, but something makes him pause for a second and look up at the neighboring rooftops. More shadows move up there, indicating that Zaha's night is far from over, and the danger is even greater. He lets out a sigh of boredom, as if facing entire armies were merely a minor inconvenience in his quest for eternal martial peace. But before dealing with the new guests, he needs to finish the job he started with the two demon brothers before him. The hero advances like a white and blue blur, cutting through the attacker's defenses with a speed that breaks the sound barrier. Steel sings, and the first assassin falls, clutching his neck as life drains from his trembling, ice-cold fingers. The other tries to flee, but Zaha's blade is faster and reaches him before he can take a third step of escape. In a blink of an eye, the threat of the twins is neutralized, leaving only lifeless bodies strewn in the mud under the incessant cold rain. Zaha wipes the blood from his sword with a dry movement, sheathing it with an elegance that contrasts with the brutality of the previous scene. The dark-haired warrior turns to the Sunbae, who watches everything, impressed by the ease with which the hero handled it all. The battle was swift, but the intensity left deep marks on the village scenery, which now looks like an open-air graveyard today. Zaha walked among the wreckage, his mind already thinking of the next step, and who sent these professional assassins to kill him in the ambush. He knows that the martial world does not forgive the strong, and that his rapid ascent has created many powerful enemies who now want his head. Ha-jin's gaze is cold, devoid of any remorse, focused only on the greater goal he swore to achieve, no matter the cost in life. He realizes that the bodies on the ground are not just common bandits, but elite members of very influential secret organizations. The hero approaches one of the fallen and notices a distinctive mark on their clothes, confirming his worst suspicions about who is behind this. Silence returns to the plaza, interrupted only by the rhythmic sound of water hitting the stones and the rooftops of the village houses. Zaha stands there for a moment, absorbing the energy of the place, feeling as if the world itself were bowing before his absolute will. The scattered bodies are the final warning to anyone who dares challenge the authority of the Hao Mun sect and its leader. He lets out a long sigh, feeling the weight of the combat in his muscles, but satisfied with the bloody outcome they managed to achieve. He looks at Zaha and says with respect, "Thank you for your hard work. Without you, I probably would have had a lot more trouble today." Ha-jin merely nods, accepting the thanks, but remaining focused on the dangers that might still be lurking in the shadows of the night. He walks over to his ally and responds in a serious tone, almost reprimanding him for his attitude during the combat they just had here. "You bastard, behave as you usually do. Don't try to be a hero if you can't guarantee your own head at the end of the fight." The Sunbae laughs and asks about the attacker's identity. Who are they after all? They didn't seem like just common roadside bandits. Zaha reveals the dark truth behind the attackers. They are from the Black Reconnaissance, a faction that usually leaves no witnesses wherever they go. The ally is shocked to hear the organization's name. What? The Black Reconnaissance that is above the Black Mystic Union? He realizes the gravity of the situation they've gotten themselves into. This is getting too big. We're messing with forces that can destroy entire cities. Zaha doesn't seem worried at all, and decides to end the matter. "I'm going to take a bath. I need to get rid of this smell of blood." The Sunbae agrees and offers to clean up the mess. "All right." I'll make these bodies disappear first. The hero walks away, leaving a trail of destruction behind, while his ally begins to arrange the corpses to avoid attracting unwanted attention. Meanwhile, in a secluded spot, a bearded man named Jeon Pung observes everything from hiding, feeling a chill run down his spine upon seeing Zaha. He mutters to himself in disbelief. So it's true he killed the Cho brothers with such ease. This kid is a monster. Fear is visible on his face as he realizes his own organization's plans are at mortal risk if Zaha continues to live. He decides to retreat and report what he saw, knowing that facing the hero now would be signing his own immediate death warrant. The scene cuts to a luxurious bathhouse where warm steam rises, creating an atmosphere of relaxation that contrasts with the previous carnage. Zaha is immersed in the water, eyes closed, trying to find a moment of peace amidst the chaos that has become his master's life. He reflects on his growth and how things have changed since he returned from the past to this new reality filled with deadly challenges. Come to think of it, it's the first time I've felt something like this since I returned. This sensation of power is almost addictive and terrifying. He feels his strength and speed increasing exponentially, surpassing everything he had experienced in his previous martial life. Why is fighting so exhilarating? It seems each battle awakens something wild and ancient within my soul that I didn't know existed. A smirk appears on his face as he enjoys the warmth of the water, relaxing his muscles tensed from the intense fight. He knows the list of enemies will only grow, now including the Black Mystic Union and the feared Black Reconnaissance he just faced. Compared to the past, things are moving much faster. I need to be ready for whatever comes, because war is near. Suddenly, the hero opens his eyes, sensing a subtle change in his surroundings, indicating his peace has once again been interrupted by invaders. The sound outside abruptly silenced, a clear sign that something is wrong and assassins might be stealthily approaching to attack him. What's happening? The silence outside is too heavy to be natural. Someone decided to pay me a visit in the middle of my bath. He doesn't move, waiting for the aggressors to reveal their intentions before acting with the necessary violence to neutralize any threat that arises. The bathhouse doors burst open and two armed men enter, interrupting the iron protagonist's moment of rest. They are Song Woojum and Yu Jung-gu, owners of local brothels who decided to exploit Zaha's vulnerability to try and kill him for prestige. It's you two? I thought you'd have more sense than to bother me while I'm naked and trying to relax a bit today. Zaha stares at them with boredom, not even bothering to get out of the hot water, demonstrating a confidence that borders on pure martial arrogance. The villains tremble but keep their swords raised, believing that since Ha-jin is unarmed, they have a real chance at victory. Did Cha Sung-tae send you here to do his dirty work? He's truly a coward who never shows his face. Without warning, Zaha leaps from the bathtub with an explosion of energy, moving so fast that the aggressor's eyes can't even blink in time. Even unarmed, his fists are like war hammers, striking the vital points of the two men with surgical precision and devastating force. They try to react, but it's too late. Zaha is already upon them, applying immobilization and bone-breaking techniques that echo throughout the room. In a matter of seconds, the two brothel owners are slammed against the wall, the wooden structures cracking under the impact of their flying bodies. They probably attacked, thinking I'd be defenseless without my weapons. What a fatal and stupid mistake these two made here today. Zaha calmly dresses, ignoring the groans of pain from the defeated enemies, and prepares to leave and discover what's truly happening. He walks down the corridor and sees a trail of blood leading outside, indicating that the village was the scene of a much larger massacre today. Where is Cha Sung-tae? I need to speak with that worm before he disappears for good or ends up causing more problems for me. He finds a terrified subordinate on the way and asks about the sect administrator's whereabouts with a spine-chilling gaze. The man stutters in fear, barely able to form a coherent sentence before the terrifying presence of the master who just emerged from his bath. He's not around here. I swear I don't know anything. Please, don't kill me. I'm just an employee. Zaha ignores him and moves on, sensing that the situation is spiraling out of control and a larger conspiracy is unfolding in the village. I don't know if Cha Sung-tae is involved in this attack or not, but I'll uncover the truth one way or another. He makes it clear to anyone who might be listening hidden in the shadows. Anyone who shows their fangs to me will die. The hero steps out into the street, where the rain still falls, and sees a horde of low-level enemies surrounding the place like crows. Come all at once! I'll show you what happens when you mess with the master of the Hao Mun sect. He charges into the crowd, transforming the street into a slaughtering ground, where limbs and blood fly with every strike from his hands. Violence is necessary to maintain order, and Zaha doesn't hesitate to use all his strength to crush the rebellion of those local traitors. Bodies pile up around him, creating a mountain of flesh and bone that serves as a pedestal for the warrior who never knows defeat. What is all this? Where did so many corpses come from? The village turned into a morgue while I was just trying to relax a bit. He continues walking, the aura of death around him driving away anyone with a shred of survival instinct left in their soul. Suddenly, he sees a group of enemies cornering someone in a dead-end alley, laughing cruelly and sadistically at the defenseless victim. That bastard is already tired. Let's all attack together and end his suffering quickly before the master arrives. Zaha recognizes the person being attacked, and a flicker of genuine fury ignites in his red eyes, promising slow and very painful retribution. He approaches silently from behind the aggressors, his presence only noticed when the shadow of death already covers each of them. The villains turn and blanch at the sight of Zaha, realizing that the monster they feared so much is now right in front of them, thirsty for blood. The hero looks at the fallen figure on the ground and lets out a sarcastic remark to ease the tension of the terrible moment unfolding. Wow, Cha Sung-tae. Are you still alive by a miracle, or just out of sheer stubbornness not to die and leave me in peace today? Sung-tae lifts his face, covered in blood and tears, looking at Zaha as if he were seeing a savior god descending from the stormy heavens. He screams with all his might, desperation audible in every note of his voice, hoarse from crying out for help. Save me, please! I don't want to die here in this filthy place at the hands of these bastards. Zaha stares at the surrounding enemies with deep contempt and whispers a promise that seals the fate of each one of them in that dark alley. You are damned bastards for touching what is mine. Now I will ensure that each of you suffers for all eternity. He prepares for the final slaughter while fear paralyzes the aggressors, who now realize the fatal mistake of having messed with Zaha's protected ones. The night is just beginning, and the blood that has flowed so far is merely the start of the river Chunha Jin will create today. That blood trail freezes Zaha to his core. He'd massacred enemies, but now he sees the true danger lies far beyond the battlefield. But what comes next? That changes everything again. Want to know what happens in part 2? Comment below.